Training video scripts, take 4. Greetings, military mission staff members. Mission Director Terry Wickert here with a quick word of welcome. If you're watching this video, then you are engaging with one or more of the training modules jointly developed by the training team on the training, development, and care staff in consultation with field leaders just like you and me from within the missions, cities, and networks, including ours, the military mission. So what about that word, training? I picked the location where I am today purposely. Take a look behind me. What do you see? You likely see one of two things: an athletic field, or perhaps you recognize it for what it really is. It's training ground for future military officers. Yes, that's right. This athletic field is on the grounds of the United States Air Force Academy. So what happens here? If you said education or athletics or learning, you'd be right, but only partly right. Just up the road, a couple of miles from here, is the Colorado Springs campus of the University of Colorado. And that is exactly what happens there. But here, something much more profound and transformational happens. Young, eager civilians from all walks of American life are slowly but methodically turned into officers of the Armed Forces of the United States of America. And all that as a result of purposeful and carefully planned training. There's that word again, training. In brief, that is exactly what you are embarking on today. The training modules that follow will introduce you to the core of what the navigators are about if you're a new staff, or refresh you in the basics if you're a seasoned staff, or provide you a fresh perspective on leading if you're stepping up into the role of staff supervisor. Regardless of which it is, it all begins with solid training. And so, tin hut, hand salute, ready, 2. Let's get started, shall we? Cut, core training intro. In my introduction, I mentioned that cadets in training here at the United States Air Force Academy are trained for 4 years in the rigors of military life and given a first-rate education that is needed to make our armed forces the very best in the world. But they also receive a very real and equally rigorous 4-year-long examination in the most important part of the training of all. It's what the military calls core values. These are the character traits that can't really be taught. Rather, they have to be imparted and caught. If these young men and women are to live up to the sacred trust of leadership that their profession demands. During my own time on active duty, these were honor, doing the right thing, courage, doing the right thing when it is hard, and commitment, doing the right thing until it is done and done right. These basic values form the military core, and they define who a member of the armed services must be to become part of the greater military team. It is exactly like that in our navigator work. You'll find in this core segment of your training the core ideas, values, practices that set us apart as navigators and, more important, as kingdom laborers and builders. We call that building heart, vision, and skill. So with that as an introduction, lock and load. It's time to roll. Cut, refresher training. Take 4. In my introduction, I mentioned that cadets in training here at the Air Force Academy are trained for 4 years in the rigors of military life and given the first-rate education that's needed to make our armed forces the very best in the world. But you can bet your combat boots to ammo buckets that it doesn't end there. No, the initial training they receive here at the Academy is just the beginning of a lifetime of training to keep these young officers refreshed and proficient in their profession. And it's the same for us. Our TDC staff has put together the following refresher training modules for our veteran staff as a way of keeping you up to date and reminded of some of the fundamentals and basics that all of us need on occasion as a reminder to keep ourselves current and relevant to the culture in which God has called us to live and minister to others. I know you'll find these helpful, so let's get the good ship USS Refresher underway, shall we? Cut. Supervision training take. In my introduction, I mentioned that cadets in training here at the Air Force Academy are trained for 4 years in the rigors of military life and given the first-rate education that is needed to make our armed forces the very best in the world. But staying current and proficient alone isn't enough. They're also expected to lead others, potentially into dangerous combat missions, as part of their duties as military officers and leaders. This type of responsibility takes specialized training and vision. Actually, not just vision, but supervision. That word super is from the Latin prefix supra, which literally means above or on top of. Take a look behind me. Notice that my view is at ground level, but others have an elevated view where they can see movements, trends, potholes to avoid, and weaknesses, formations that you can't simply see at eye level where I stand. Well, this is exactly the way it works for a supervisor as well. That word literally means one who has an elevated view. Supervisors see things others don't because they have an elevated view of what is happening, like you see high in the stands behind me. If you're taking this training, the one which follows, it is because you have answered yes to God's call to embark on the most rewarding and challenging assignment of all, leading and supervising others. And just like leading others in our military, our navigator supervisory work also takes an elevated view and specialized training to do it well. So I want to thank you, first of all, for saying yes to leadership and taking on the enormously rewarding job of supervising others. I also want to remind you, however, of what Proverbs 27:23 says relative to this leading and supervising. It says, "Know well the condition of your flocks and give attention to your herds." What a great word of encouragement as we consider the tremendous privilege of supervising others. Of course, you can't know the condition of that which you can't see. That's the elevated view part. And you can't give attention if you aren't near enough to help or don't know where to start. That's the willingness and desire to be on the field, helping the team as well. This training is designed to help you with both. I hope you find it practical and helpful as you lead and supervise the next generation of kingdom builders in our great navigator calling. Ready to go wheels up? Looks like we're cleared for takeoff and elevated flight operations. Let's roll.